Palestinians in Israel, Jerusalem and the occupied West Bank observed a general strike on Tuesday to protest the Gaza war and other Israeli policies that many activists and some rights groups say constitute an overarching system of apartheid that denies Palestinians the rights afforded to Jews. Israel rejects that characterization, saying its citizens have equal rights. It blames the war on Hamas, the Islamic militant group that controls Gaza, and accuses it of inciting violence across the region. The strike was called by leaders of the Palestinian community inside Israel, which makes up 20% of the country's population, and was embraced by the internationally backed Palestinian Authority in the occupied West Bank, where ministries and schools were closed. Most businesses appeared to be observing the strike, and protests were expected. Mohammed Barakeh, one of the organizers of the strike, said Palestinians are expressing a collective position against Israel's aggression in Gaza and Jerusalem, as well as the brutal repression by police inside Israel. Last week Israel saw an outbreak of violence, with groups of Jewish and Palestinian citizens fighting in the streets and torching vehicles and buildings. In both Israel and the West Bank, Palestinian protesters have clashed with Israeli forces. The Israeli military said Tuesday it fired at 65 militant targets, including rocket launchers, a group of fighters and the homes of Hamas commanders that the army said were being used for military purposes. It said more than 60 fighter jets took part in the operation. The military said it also shot down a drone approaching the Israeli border in the northeast, far from the Gaza fighting. It did not say where the unmanned aircraft originated, but it's possible the drone came from Syria. The military said Palestinian militants fired 90 rockets, 20 of which fell short into Gaza. Israel says its missile defenses have intercepted about 90% of the rockets. Israel's strikes have brought down several buildings and caused widespread damage in the narrow coastal territory, which is home to more than 2 million Palestinians and has been under an Israeli-Egyptian blockade since Hamas seized power from rival Palestinian forces in 2007. The attacks have damaged at least 18 hospitals and clinics and entirely destroyed one health facility, the World Health Organization said in a new report. Nearly half of all essential drugs in the territory have run out. It said the bombing of key roads, including those leading to the main Shifa Hospital, has hindered the movement of ambulances and supply vehicles. Over 41,000 displaced Palestinians have sought refuge in UN schools in Gaza, which was already struggling to cope with a coronavirus outbreak. Gaza is also running low on fuel for its electricity supply and water. Israel has vowed to press on with its operations, and the United States signaled it would not pressure the two sides for a ceasefire even as President Joe Biden said he supported one. We will continue to operate as long as necessary in order to return calm and security to all Israeli citizens, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said after meeting with top security officials on Monday. The Biden administration has declined so far to publicly criticize Israel's part in the fighting or send a top-level envoy to the region. On Monday, the United States again blocked a proposed UN Security Council statement calling for an end to the crisis related to Gaza and the protection of civilians, especially children. Since the fighting began, the Israeli military has launched hundreds of airstrikes it says are targeting Hamas's militant infrastructure. Palestinian militants in Gaza have fired more than 3,400 rockets into Israel. Hamas and Islamic Jihad say at least 20 of their fighters have been killed, while Israel says the number is at least 160 and has released the names of and photos of more than 24 militant commanders it says were eliminated. Israel's airstrikes have leveled a number of Gaza City's tallest buildings, which Israel alleges contained Hamas military infrastructure. Among them was the building housing the Associated Press Gaza office and those of other media outlets. Netanyahu alleged that Hamas military intelligence was operating inside the building and said any evidence would be shared through intelligence channels. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said he hasn't yet seen any evidence supporting that.